Good noon, everyone, and welcome to Revolutionary Fire Overhaul Part 4. I'm still PCI's John Plinky, that's still Professor Ralph Nash and Tim Sullivan. Before we get started, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions during the program today, and also remember to answer the polls as they appear on your screen. Thank you all for joining us. Take it away, guys.
Well,
Okay.
Ralph, it's been a busy time, so why don't you let folks know where things stand?
Yeah, a lot's going on. They got, as I said before, they dropped 5 parts last Thursday. Uh, you notice on the screen we've got the overhaul parts, and on the right they tell you when they issued that. So part one was issued way back in early May. Part two they put as an overhaul part, but you notice there's no date. And what that means is that they are overhauling that along with the other parts. So if any of the other parts have a reference to one of the definitions in part two, they you go ahead and put that in or change it if they want to. But there's not many changes that I've seen. And the same thing is true of part 52, the clauses and solicitation provisions. They're changing them quite frequently. Almost every part changes some of the provisions, and we'll see some of that as we go through. So, Tim, let's go to uh, part 35 first, the research and development, which I think affects everybody. Uh, let's run down. Yeah, there we go. And let's go to the practitioner's album and see what they tell us about what they've done to part 35.
Okay, I've got it somewhere up here. There it is.
Okay, click on start
Oh,
practitioner's album. There you go. Okay, now here's where they, at the beginning here, they tell you what they've done. Uh, there's a brief statement up front, which is not uh, terribly important. The standard, they remove outdated provisions, blah blah blah, redundant and all that. Let's run down and see what's left in and what's taken out.
well, Ralph, I should stop and say, look at the last sentence. This makes the federal R&D environment more attractive to innovative commercial firms.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, maybe. Okay. Now, the first thing they do is tell you what statutes apply. Um, and there's a list of them there. Uh, you notice there's something striking about that list. If you look at it, 31 USC, 30 USC, um, applied
10
research
USC, 10 USC, yeah.
section. There's your definitions are retained, so they picked them up at part two. Um, and they run down the different things. What the striking thing about this is that that there's no mention of Title 10 of the
Actually,
code.
it's up here, right here. It says in the second bullet, use of federally funded research and development contracts, 10 USC.
Oh, that's 10 USC. Okay, but that's the only mention of 10. Um, but there are a lot of other provisions in 10 which I assume are being left for the DFARS, for the DAR Council to adopt, but I'm not absolutely sure of that. Anyway, then they tell you what they moved. Um, uh, they whoop. Okay, remove from the FAR requirements found in 35 work statements are moved to a companion guide. Now, there is no such thing at the current time, but someday they're telling you that they're treating that as an internal issue that doesn't need to be in the FAR, can go into the guide, and presumably that means we'll see guides issued for each part, although nobody said that yet. But this website does pick up some guidance. Okay, so and then let's look at what's deleted. They've deleted publicizing requirements because that's like Part 5. They've deleted general, they've streamlined that. They've deleted contract methods and contract types. That's really important, Tim.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing in R&D contract is the type of contract.
Yep.
And that guidance in there was supplementary to what is in Part 16, which deals with types of contract. What they're doing is throwing that over the transom, and presumably there will be some mention in Part 16 to pick up what they've thrown out. And the same thing has happened with subcontracting. It's happened with data, another important issue. They say that that duplicates Part 27. It doesn't actually. It's more explicit. Patent rights, that's just a cross-reference. It doesn't say anything about patent rights, insurance, and government property. So all of those helpful additional provisions about R&D contracting have been dropped from this part on the theory that they're going to be picked up in all those other parts as they get issued. We haven't seen that yet, or none of those parts have been issued. So, but we'll be watching to see if they actually pick them up.
Ralph, don't you think that that, for example, the discussion that's currently at 35.006, don't you think that's going to show up in the guide?
Perhaps. I hopefully will. But the civilian agencies do quite a lot of fixed price R&D.
Yes, they do.
And those are smaller contracts. We haven't seen them get in bad trouble there. DOD has gotten in serious trouble over and over. So it'll be interesting to see how much of this is picked up in guides, or we'll see if we go down the bottom, we'll see some mention of it in the guides here on this website, the Practitioner's Album.
Well, let me ask you another question. You see at the very bottom it says 35.014 government property.
Yeah.
Well, the real title to that in the current FAR is government property and title.
Right.
And they dropped the words and title.
And title is covered in part of 45.
Okay.
So I think that's probably going to be okay.
All right.
Okay, let's go down a little bit. We don't want to spend too much time on this, but let's run down and look at what comes next in the Practitioner's Album. You got to click down to bottom.
Okay, sorry.
Right. Okay. Now, what comes next on all of these is the current FAR and then a line out of what's been deleted. So if you need to do a detailed look at this, that's how you do it. Um, and you notice we can run down through that. I don't think we have time, Tim, to look in detail. But again, you can see what they've done. For example, they've lined out recoupment,
Right.
which I think they don't say anything about that up above, but recoupment is something that has occurred so infrequently in recent years that I think they probably assumed it's not relevant anymore. Uh, but who knows? Well, it may turn up in one of the guides.
Uh-huh.
They cut out the general. They almost always cut out the general guidance. That in most of our parts, that's uh, put in there to guide contracting officers to sort of tell them, here's what this is all about. And they've assumed that's not important anymore.
Well, I assume that is going to go into the guide. It's so classic of something that should be in a guide.
Yeah, could be, could be. And maybe even more guidance than that.
Right.
Okay, let's run down. Notice they've left some of the policy in. Uh, they've left out publicizing. That's going into that's tossed over the transom. They're assuming there are no special rules for publicizing.
Well,
Or,
actually, I think the way they rewrote it is you just go out to the firms that we know are technically capable using your technical people. You'll see that. You'll see
yeah,
that.
yeah. The work statements, they've cut out most of that guidance. That's important in R&D contracts, but again, you're probably right. That'll go into some kind of a buying guide. Uh,
And again, it's a reminder that they only want to keep in the FAR what is required by statute or promotes the efficient
right.
uh, government
And,
contracting process. You would
and
think a work statement would reach that level. I mean, to me, because Ralph, where do you start when you get into a battle over whether new work under an R&D contract falls within the scope?
right there. That's right. That's a critical issue. Um, and again, as you pointed out before, that'll probably be covered in a buying guide. When they're saying it's not necessary here, in effect, they're saying it's not required by statute, and the contracting people in the companies don't need to participate in any changes we make to our policies, to our guidance, because remember, the buying guides can be issued and changed anytime without going to the public.
Right. No rulemaking requirement.
No rulemaking. So by throwing a lot of this stuff in the buying guide, they're really uh, cutting the industry people out of it to a significant extent. Okay, notice they left in the guidance on solicitations, um, and keep going down, Tim. Uh, Now, much of that they left in is a bit duplicate of what they cut out. So maybe the reason is that they've cut out the duplication.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to the end of this and let's see.
And by the way, Ralph, look at F, for example. We see the word shall, which we don't see a lot of in this revised FAR. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, right. Well, when they have a mandatory, they still use the term.
Yep.
And notice that G is should, not shall.
Right.
So they're pretty good about which is mandatory and which is not. Um, okay, evaluation for award. They left a lot of that in. That's an important issue when making the choice of contractor. They've cut out the subcontracting, um, which is a fairly important issue, but they say it's covered by the other part. Okay. Scientific and technical reports they left in. That's a statutory requirement. And they've cut out data, which is a bit scary. You notice that Part 27 focuses mainly on rights in data.
Right.
This segment here focuses on what data you should actually get, which is a different issue.
Yep.
So hopefully Part 27 will be beefed up to talk more about. It has some guidance on what data, but fairly vague.
But Ralph, I mean, the truth is that FAR Part 27 is almost an afterthought to DoD contractors because it's DoD FAR Supplement 227 that covers that.
Right. Yeah, that's the one area where you're not mandated to have a single regulation. It's patent rights just a cross reference. They cut that out. Insurance, government property. We've been through all that. So let's go down and see what the guidance is that they've given us. Go down to the bottom, Tim, and they've left in the FFRDC, and they've left in basic ordering agreements. So, okay, click down at the bottom.
I did.
Smart accelerators. Now, here's where they begin to tell you the kind of guidance that's going to go into a buying guide, presumably. And this is pretty good guidance. It's rather brief, but they say use broad agency announcements, which is almost everybody does for research, not for development. And then consider non-FAR based. Go to other transactions or commercial openings, solicitation openings. So that was, they're telling you that speeds things up a bit. And I think there's probably some truth to that. Okay, then go down further.
Before I do that, Ralph, I want to look at this last paragraph here. These smart accelerators demonstrate best practices about how to simplify the solicitation process while meeting competition requirements. So they're because I've been thinking, when are they talking about maximizing competition, and they barely get it in there?
Yeah, and that of course is for smaller jobs raises a huge problem because what agencies are seeing is too much competition. Too many competitors, which makes it really difficult. Now, I think below that they'll give some guidance on what to do about that. They talk there's the broad agency announcement guide. Okay, prototyping contracts, that's the other transactions. Although you could do prototyping on a FAR-based contract as well. And there's your, if you go down one more, you have your competition issue. Use of, generals, it's flexibility. And then they tell you about R&D outsider use of blah, 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 blah. Um, this is reasonably good guidance, um, and put together pretty quickly. Um, Down below, you'll see the non-FAR based other transactions. Um, they tell you about that. Um, Not every agency has other transactions authority, but
That's
many
true.
of them do. Um, and every agency has to know how much they have. They tell you about SBIR. All the major agencies have SBIR. Although, notice, Tim, there was never any guidance in the FAR about how to do an SBIR
Right.
contract. That's never been covered. So, this is an improvement on the FAR. Okay, and then previous accelerators, and uh, they're telling you about there's your work statement,
Right.
information, uh, and collaborative building requirements. They're telling you to work with industry some to get guidance on what the market has out there, which is they don't go into much detail on that, but and they challenge based acquisitions. Uh, that's an interesting one. We don't see many of them, but occasionally we see a contest being run by an agency. NASA does that occasionally, and they put some statement about that in there. Okay, that's all the guidance is in for part 35. Let's take a. Uh,
Oh,
Hey, Tim,
yeah.
we have a question from the audience asking, is a BAA different than an R&D solicitation?
is
Is a broad agency announcement different than an R&D solicitation?
Yes, a
Yes.
broad agency announcement is a um, research contracting technique where the agency publishes um, once a year or maybe every 6 months. They publish a list of topics that they'd like to have people explore, research topics. This is basic research, basically. And then people can submit proposals uh, at their convenience. The um, the agency evaluates proposals, frequently peer group evaluations, and if they like one, they issue a contract or a grant. And they keep doing that in serial fashion until they use up their money for that 6 months of that year. So it's not a head-to-head competition generally, although occasionally you see one that makes it a head-to-head by being more very specific about what they want. But generally, the topics are fairly broad, and there's no head-to-head competition. It's just done one at a time.
So it's different from a solicitation for R&D, for example, which is going to have a scope of work. It's going to have a deadline for submitting proposals, the whole bit.
Right, and that's a head-to-head competition.
Right. Right.
Where
Well,
here, generally, we don't have that.
but the other thing, Ralph, is, I mean, I retired 5 years ago, so I haven't been actively practicing. But when we talked about BAAs, generally that meant it was a DARPA solicitation or the DOE version of it. But are a lot of agencies using them now?
Almost all major agencies that support basic research
Hmm,
use the BAA technique.
that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a good question. Thank you. So, Ralph, where do you want me to go?
let's go to back to the main screen and let's take a look at information technology.
Okay, I think it's this one, Fritz. There we go. Information technology. Is that 39?
39.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, that takes us up here.
Let's
Uh,
see how many people have adopted this
oh,
DB.
okay, let's go to 39 before we go into it.
Yeah,
23.
there you go. Okay. Click on, yeah, there you go. There are all the agencies. Notice almost everybody has dug into this except the Department of Defense.
DOD is missing.
DOD is missing from all of these. So DOD apparently has made the decision, which I think is a very wise decision, that they'll just stick with the current FAR until a new FAR has gone through rulemaking and is actually issued, which means that the COs don't have to spend their time figuring out what's going on. They can
Or
just
what
go.
to use. Right.
Yeah. Most of the other agencies have done one of two things. They've either adopted the deviation as published by the FAR Council, and notice the FAR Council calls it a deviation, but it's not. It's only a deviation when an agency adopts it and issues it. Now, the agencies have the right to alter what the FAR Council has published. But if they do that, they've got to go back and get the FAR Council's approval for that. So my guess is that there's not much of that going on, but we don't know. There's no way I have to know except to go to the individual agency and compare what they've issued with what the FAR Council has issued, and that is really an onerous process. But of course, if you're working in one of the agencies or with one of the agencies, then you can dig into that and figure it out. Okay, let's go to part 39 and click on part 39, Tim. Oh, we didn't. Yeah, that's good. Click on part 39 and let's go to the practitioners album, and that'll tell us what they've done. Now, notice information technology is one of the areas in the OMB memo that they explicitly say they're going to issue a buying guide. And it's also one of the common goods and services in the category management system. So we've got a kind of an overlap here, and I'm not sure how much this, what they put in basically is what's required by statute. So let's see what they've got down here. They've clarified it. They've talked about modular. Modular is required by statute. 508 is required by statute.
Oh.
Okay, so there are the statutory requirements. There, down there. Modular, that's 43 USC.
41 USC.
41. Procurement procedures, what's that? 40. And electronic information technology, 29. Notice no reference there to Title 10.
Right. So that leaves out DOD?
Yeah, I think so. I guess what that's happening. Okay, that's what's retained. And they've talked about Agile there, which is okay, which everybody's pushing for software, and to some extent for maybe some other parts of information technology, but mainly for the software. Okay, then they tell you what's removed from the FAR. Go down to that, Tim.
Yep. Right there. Or do you want me to go down to the
No,
deleted part?
there you go. There you go. Non-regulatory resources, streamlined, uh, OMB circular. I don't know why they're removing the reference. Maybe they're figuring the OMB circular is out of date. It probably is. Uh, they've they've uh, removed the instructions for establishing modular contracts. Uh, that's been a real problem. Uh, they've and again, that's got to go to the buying guide. But that's a major issue. It's been, it's one thing to call for modular contracts, but the question is, do you have enough money to pay for it, and how do you actually structure the contract? So that'll be covered in, I think, in detail in the buying guide. But there is a statutory requirement, but but there's no requirement in the statute about how you do it. They just said you should do it. Uh, okay, minimum experience for education requirements. They cut that out. So it's in the guide. Coming soon, it's the FAR
Yeah,
companion guide.
coming soon.
Uh, Notice there's a lot of coming soons, and they define soon. So, okay, deleted is safeguarding information, redundant clause removed. They removed that clause there. They and that feeds over into Part 52. They've cut out prohibitions. I don't know why they've cut that out, but again, that'll go in the guide. And they rescinded circular. Yeah, there's one thing that I've noticed as I look at these is that there are a number of things in the FAR that are just plain obsolete, Tim.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. And this gives them an opportunity. I don't know whether the FAR Council has left that stuff in, but this is a good opportunity to get rid of it.
To clean it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'll see that about the provisions about Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah.
That are scattered through the FAR, but we're not there anymore.
Nope.
Okay. So let's run down through the line out, Tim, and go to what's at the bottom and see what they've told us. Okay.
There's a lot of stuff deleted, Ralph.
Yeah, all the general guidance and procedural stuff, they basically deleted in the whole rewrite. So, the FAR Council, to some extent, tried to make the FAR a standalone document that would tell you what this is about and how you should go about it. And that will no longer be part of the FAR. All that stuff is going to go into the buy guides. So keep going. You see what happened, what they did with solicitation provisions. See, they whacked out the privacy provision.
Want me to hit continue?
Yeah, hit continue. Okay, here's the buying guide guidance. This is the initial effort at creating this kind of information. Now, aligning acquisition agency's technology roadmap. That's an interesting one. I noticed that that's a video. That probably came out of the Homeland Security
Lab.
Procurement Innovation Lab. They over the last 8 or 10 years, they've made a whole lot of videos on all kinds of different topics, trying to help their own people. And these buying guides, these probationers albums, have picked up those videos and stuck them in here when they think they're appropriate. So you can, if you want to look at this, any of our readers, you can go back and just begin to click the buttons, and you'll get the video. You get people, usually talking heads, and with charts. They're pretty good. They're not great, but they're helpful. Okay, but we're not going to do that. That would take some
No.
time. There's somebody's made some guidance on modular contract. There's another video, uh, and again, that's one of the issues that is required by statute. Market research demonstrations, another pretty good guidance. Homeland Security used a demonstration technique as their selection process, and that is a pretty good technique. You get people to come in and work a problem, and you can assess how well they can, or how well they use agile techniques, and actually work a hypothetical. The Homeland Security did it the first time. They had 111 competitors, and they obviously couldn't do it with that many people. They threw in the towel. And what that means is that if you're going to do that technique, you've got to do a down select first, and limit the number of people who are actually going to do the demonstration.
Well,
Now,
this particular video goes to that OFPP MythBuster document, Ralph, about because they learned that the agencies were terrified to meet with private industry, and they
right,
weren't getting the benefit of those kinds of meetings before they were issuing RFPs, meaning the RFPs weren't anywhere near the state of the art. And so I think this is what is telling people it's okay to meet with industry. Do it as early as possible. You can do it and do it correctly.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's good guidance. Um, as you say, it's necessary guidance because agencies are scared. There's the next one is the technical demonstrations. That's the Homeland Security technique, and they throw in oral presentations as well. Although that probably should be two different videos. But anyway, there's another video that you can look at. Um, Good guidance from the procurement lab. Um, uh, so they're giving, notice they're giving pretty good guidance here now. Um, it's interesting, Tim. You notice that these are not in the Part 35. So somebody deciding what kind of guidance was necessary for R&D uh, didn't pick most of these up, although they're all relevant
Yeah,
to R&D contracting. So
yeah.
it's spotty. It's good stuff, but it's a bit spotty. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay,
This is all new.
discovery, an interactive engagement method. There's more of your trying to persuade people to talk to industry.
Right. Understand what the government's problem is.
Right. And notice that if you look at the bottom, that's a pretty long video.
Yep.
Um, so again, I think all of these have come out of the procurement lab.
Well, it's interesting, Ralph, because culturally, a lot of agencies are going to have trouble with this one. They have never been comfortable with letting the contractors get a good look at what things were going on inside the agency, which is this is what they're saying they ought to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I mean, the guidance. Notice this goes well beyond the FAR, the current FAR. This is additional guidance, and if this is an indication of what's going to be in the buying guides, that's pretty hopeful.
Yeah.
Because now a contracting officer uh, would have to take some time to look at all these videos, but at the end of each one of these, they tell you that you can get some continuing education points by going through the entire process and hopefully learning something from it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what's next, Tim. Oh, there's your down select, right? And again, that's what Homeland Security learned when when they had 111
Right.
competitors, uh, and that they're talking about phase proposal submission evaluation that narrows down the original number. And basically, what's going to be evaluated in phase one is experience, maybe staff, and maybe probably past performance, but no price, no cost, and no technical proposal necessarily at that point. But what they're aiming for over on the right, according to the procurement lab, remember that previous one is either a demonstration or an oral presentation, one or the other. Um, God, we've been preaching oral presentations for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's a hard sell.
Yeah. It came up after the mid 90s, Ralph, with FASA and FARA. And it had come about, as you'll recall, because um, contracting officers were telling OFPP that um, they would get proposals that looked like they were written by God and the several archangels, and then when the team showed up, it looked like the Three Stooges, and and so they decided that they needed a way to kick the tires, to give the agencies a chance to kick the tires. And they would have these oral presentations where they didn't want the company's chairman to be there. They wanted the people who were going to run the contract to be there.
That's right.
And there was a lot of excitement around that concept when it came out in 95 or so. But the problem, I think, Ralph, was that when agencies started to do it, they found themselves subject to protests, and they just stopped doing it. They were afraid of doing them.
Yeah, although they didn't lose any protests hardly.
No.
But what I think, Tim, and this is my assessment. I'm not sure I'm right, but I think most contracting officers don't want their technical people to have a down to earth discussion with a contractor's technical people, and to have a good oral presentation. It can't just be a presentation. It
Right.
needs to be an exchange of points of view. What do you really intend? How would you do this? That kind of thing.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Not just a dog and pony show.
yeah, but again, there's a fear that you would reveal information from another company's proposal or idea, their oral presentation. I mean, there's just a lack of willingness to have that kind of frank discussion in a competitive environment.
Right.
If you did it sole source,
You can
uh,
do it.
the way we used to negotiate contracts, then it would be a no big deal. But
Yeah.
so notice that they're pushing this concept, trying to persuade people that it's okay to do this.
Right.
And the right way to do it is to do a down select first.
Okay, let me stop there, Ralph, for just a second.
Yeah,
Fritz, do we have any questions from the audience, number one? And number two, do you have a password today?
Since we don't have a distinct slide deck, I don't need passwords today.
Okay, fine.
I do have one question asking, wasn't modular contracting legislated in the Klinger-Cohen Act?
but I didn't understand the
The
question.
question is, wasn't modular contracting required by Klinger-Cohen in the mid-90s?
Uh, yeah, I guess so. I think that's where it came from, but I'm not absolutely sure. But it's been in the statutes for quite a long while.
Yeah, I don't know if it was then.
It didn't move people to do very much, but it's been a requirement. Okay, let's see what's at the bottom here.
Challenge-based acquisitions.
Space acquisitions, yeah. I remember that was in the
Right.
used real world performance challenges. And presumably there's a financial award, or maybe just the award of a contract. But yeah, that's where you're going out and telling industry that hey, you got a problem and tell me how to solve it.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah, like how to control AI.
yeah. Well, again, all this guidance would be excellent in the Part 35 as well. But for some reason, they beefed it up in the information technology area. I'm not sure why. Okay, let's take a look at one of the new ones, Tim. I said five of them came out in
Oh, yeah.
last Thursday.
Want me to go back to the main list?
Go back to the main menu and let's look at Part 12, the most important one that came out is Part 12.
There we go. Acquisition of commercial products and commercial services.
Right. And go to the practitioner.
Okay.
We'll see what they did. They did this is an interesting one because they did a lot of reorganization here. Okay, as fundamentally re-engineered, they call it, and what they've done is to try to put it in a step-by-step process from selecting what you're going to buy, structuring the solicitation, and then award, and then contract administration. So they've restructured the whole thing.
So they've dumped part 13 and dumped it into 12 then.
Just the tail end. Remember, at the Part 13, there's that simplified technique where you can combine your solicitation and your announcement into a single document, and you don't have to leave the solicitation out there for 30 days. And the Part 12 has always said you can use that, but they decide the best thing to do is move it over to Part 12. Now it's still applicable to Part 13. So when we see Part 13, it'll be interesting to see whether they've left it in there. I mean, Part 13 deals with uh, simplified acquisitions,
Right.
and we haven't seen that part yet. But anyway, they moved it over to Part 12, which means people don't have to go to a different part. Okay, and they've got a video there uh, explaining simplified procedures.
Well, let's just a reminder. The current Part 12 is entitled Acquisition of Commercial Products and Commercial Services. So the title's changing.
Yeah,
And then the current FAR Part 13 is entitled Simplified Acquisition Procedures.
right,
Period.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see when they issue Part 13. Okay, here's the statutory requirements. Now, here, interesting, here they pick up a lot of stuff out of the Armed Services Procurement Act. They pick up the Title 10 provision on procurement of them, paragraph 3651. They pick up the preference, which is statutory, and they pick up the rights and technical data, interestingly, which is I'm not that's kind of an odd one to be picking up. And that's that basic statement we can see, and they picked up payment. So here they seem to have picked up virtually all of the 10 USC provisions that apply, which is different than the other parts we looked at, which is either none or just a few picks. And then, of course, they picked up all the 41 USCs and some others. So there's obviously this one, there's a lot of statutory requirements because Congress has really pushed the agencies to try and buy commercial. So they've got a lot to deal with here. Okay. Then they tell you that they've reorganized it. And then they tell you down at the bottom, additional revisions include, if you go down a bit, Tim, see, now here's where they structure it sequentially. So pre-solicitation, solicitation, evaluation award, post-award, and then they throw into the end micro purchases. So they restructured the whole thing. They basically rewritten the part, which is quite different from the others. I don't know who did this, but it's a very interesting rewrite. They don't seem to have changed very much. I mean, after all, the statutes are lay on them there, but they've redone it. They've got it reorganized, and then you notice they have different FAR clauses. They tell you that they've rewritten the clauses as well, although they didn't rewrite the -4 clause, which is the important one, the terms and conditions. They pretty much left that the same. And that's important because we've had a lot of litigation on that. So if they change the language, you'd have to relitigate what those words mean, which would be a terrible problem for people.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they put in a clause matrix describing the changes. So,
But you know, Ralph, I think the fact that they've had to use a clause matrix tells us how complicated a project this is.
well, yeah, I mean, Part 53 has a huge clause matrix.
Right.
So I don't know what this means about what they're going to do to Part 53. Here they've, in effect, taken that part of Part 53 and put it in Part 12, which is kind of interesting. But again, we haven't seen Part 53, so we don't know what that's going to look like. It's pretty long. Okay, and then notice they tell you that they've kept the definitions in 2101 with a few edits, they say. So again, they're cross-referencing what they've done to Part 52, Part 53, and Part 2. Okay, then they've moved stuff. Interesting. A subcontract doesn't have a single definition in the current FAR. And by moving the definition out of Part 12 and into 44, it might mean that they're trying to have a single definition, although you notice they don't say that they put a single definition in Part 2. So,
yeah, I mean, in FAR Part 2 is where the definitions are that apply far wide. And if they're in any other part, they only apply to that part. So that is interesting.
Yeah. And there's no definition of subcontractor in
Right.
Part 2. So, or subcontract. So, but we'll have to watch and see what happens there. I'm not sure they can actually do it because some of the definitions, like in the Miller Act, I think are statutory definitions. So they may not be able to have it. Okay, and I'm not sure, what do they say? You have broad discretion on how you evaluate quotes, okay? Whatever. What do they tell you is removed from the FAR? Go down, Tim, to the, see what they cut out. Whoa, go up a little. Let's. Well, that you're into the line out.
Yeah.
But you skipped over the discussion of what they removed.
Let's see.
If you go back up. Yeah, change summary.
That's what we just went through, though.
Yeah, but retain. We didn't look at removed. Keep going down.
Okay.
There you go. Removed. Okay, and there they tell you that they've removed the master clauses. They've combined some clauses here, and they've removed the representations and certs. They've done that. I think that's been standard. That's all going into the other part. And then they've at the bottom, several clause provisions are no longer required for commercial contracts. This change reflects an appropriate
approximate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a constant problem. The congressional goal was to have a limited number of provisions, but as they kept amending the FAR, they kept adding them, and that list got longer and longer. So cutting back on that list is a step in the right direction.
You have to agree.
They've cut out 40 of them. They say that's good. Okay, and then
Now we may find them. We may find them in the guidance. We don't know.
Yeah, I hope not. I
Yeah,
hope not.
we'll see.
I mean, if they're not required, they should not be required, right?
Yep.
And after all, if we're trying to attract commercial companies, we don't want to throw them a document with 50 or 60 terms and conditions that they don't understand.
Right. Right.
So, this is an effort to go back to the original congressional intent, which to have it be a fairly simple document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the -5 clause, by the way. All right, we don't really want to look at it with the line out, I don't think.
Okay.
We don't. We're down to a half hour left. Let's go down, be down under the line out and see what guidance they've given us. Uh,
I'm working on it, Ralph. I got to be getting close.
yeah, yeah, they've cut out. Well, as I said, they notice they tell you it's cut out, but actually some of it is just moved uh, to a different uh, technique because they've rewritten the entire document.
I'm sorry about this. I'm driving as fast as I can.
Yeah, well, you can see they've cut out a lot. Yeah, this is the -4 clause. They didn't change that much, which is good. That's the one that's created so darn much litigation.
All right, here we go.
There we go. Okay, uh, part 12. What's so revolutionary? Did we get an answer to our question, which revolution?
Well, you haven't asked it, Ralph. The question you are going to pose to the audience was, what revolution are we talking about? The Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, or the American Revolution? Wasn't that your
Right.
question?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, that's the question.
Oh, there we go. All right. That's just a bit of a spoof on the fancy name they gave this full thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, French, if you say French, you like the guillotine, right?
Yes, you do.
You cut stuff out. Okay. What's so revolutionary? Uh, uh, okay, good question. What's so revolutionary? And I have to go down and see what they give us on that.
Well, I don't. I think we want to go to smart accelerators now, don't we?
Yeah, right. They transformed it, I guess. That's what's revolutionary for part 12. They streamlined it, uh, rewrote it. Um, Very different from most of the other parts. This is the most extensive reorganization in some ways that I've seen, where they actually sat down and restructured the entire part with different title, different headings for the paragraphs and all that. Uh, they want streamlined RFQ procedures, understanding commercial products. Yeah. Uh, shit. Well, again, asking commercial companies sell you a product to write a technical proposal makes no sense whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
what's
that's true. Can I ask you a question? Is the simplified acquisition threshold gone? Or, I mean, we haven't seen anything about that in the FAR Part 12 stuff.
well, yeah, it's the same number, but then there are these exceptions,
Or
and,
right, right.
and this is
Okay,
one of the exceptions.
right. Okay.
Okay, the 7.5 million
All right.
gives them a lot of flexibility.
It sure does. And then understanding commercial products and services.
Well, we got a video, right?
Yeah.
Uh, which everybody can look at, and that'll hopefully uh, push people toward looking for. One of the problems we've had uh, is that the agencies want to uh, reinvent the wheel rather than using a commercial solution, and of course that's in many cases much more expensive. But on the other hand, if you adopt a commercial, let's say, commercial software program, which does your job, you got to enter into a license agreement, and you got to figure out how much you're going to pay and for what. Negotiating those licenses has turned out to be a terrible problem. We had one litigation where they asked the contracting officer, well, did you agree to that license? And he said, oh, I signed it, but I didn't read it. So, I mean, that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, the idea that you can move to a commercial software product and you're home free uh, may or may not be true. If it's a product that's going to be widely used and you get a seat license, you're going to have to pay an amount for every single person that uses it or every computer that uses that program. So that's a tough trade-off. But the goal, congressional goal, is to use the commercial product. Okay, let's go down to the next slide and see what they tell us here. They don't give you. Now remember, this is a relatively new. This only came out last Thursday.
Right. So they give you
So
some resources.
yeah, they haven't had time to do a whole lot of guidance as they have. I assume if we wait and look at this a month from now, we'll see more. We'll see more guidance at the bottom, I think. But for now, uh, we don't have all
Well,
the.
these three are all DoD agencies. And
Yeah,
so I wonder whether they're just going to sit tight until the whole thing is over.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see but some of the things we've looked at implement the DoD statutes and some don't.
Right. Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see what the DFARS looks like and
Yeah.
the PGI. Previous smart accelerators, they give you those. That's all they give you this time. Acquisition techniques as far as smart accelerators. And then here's the guidance for contracting people in the government to get credits for
Continuing learning points. Yeah.
learning points but again they need to give more stuff here for people to work on. Okay, now let's see, we've got 20 minutes left. Let's go back to the main um, slide here.
Hey
There now.
guys,
Go
did,
to
Yes,
part.
Fritz has a question, Ralph.
Yeah,
Okay,
we have four questions so far from the audience. If you want to step in for a minute and catch up.
Probably a good idea, Ralph.
what's that?
We have 4 or 5 questions. I think we should take them now.
Oh, yeah, let's take them now.
Do you anticipate the government implementing the FAR 12 proposal despite potential pushback? In other words, will or can this be implemented without public comment? Can or do you expect these changes to be challenged in court?
Part
Well,
12.
Ralph, let me see if I can take a shot at that. I think their plan is to digest all the comments they get as they move along here, including FAR Part 12. And then ultimately, they're going to take the revised FAR and submit it, publish it in the Federal Register, the proposed revised FAR, publish it in the Federal Register for public comment, at which point you or anyone else can file comments and then ultimately go final. Sometimes they can go through a couple of steps of comments, but it's possible they could go out for one round and then finalize. So under the law, Ralph, please correct me if I'm wrong, they've got, before they can revise the FAR formally, they've got to go through the rulemaking and publish it in the federal regulation, giving the public an opportunity to comment.
Yeah, that's correct. And the OMB memo spells that out. Um, and that means it's going to be a pretty slow process because, well, now Tim, they also have said that you can submit comments on each one of these parts.
Right, that's what I said that they're going to be digesting those comments as they go along.
Right, right. So there's a kind of a double comment possibility here.
Right.
Uh, it's hard because the parts are coming out pretty fast now. So, uh, yeah, but if people want to zero in on one part and look at it in detail and see what's been cut out and what's been done with it, and then submit a comment, that would help these people, I think. But again, they give you about 6 weeks to submit comments as they issue a part. So it's kind of right now the August 14th parts are open for comment.
So the least they would get, so you get that comment period, and then when they finally go to the Federal Register, the minimum period you're going to get is 30 days. But let me step back for a second, let you know that historically, when public comment is requested in the Federal Register, you can file individual comments. Your company can file individual comments, but the big comments come from entities like the American Bar Association, the public contract section, the NDI, the National Defense Industrial Association, all the different associations are out there that your companies, if you are a member of private industry, your companies are probably members of several of these organizations. And one of the ways they justify their existence is watching the regulatory process and shepherding the comments from your industry. So comments can be the comment period can be pretty vigorous and pretty overwhelming when it's something this important.
Yeah, and notice that when they publish the final reg, the tradition has been that they respond in writing in the Federal Register to every comment. Now, here we got the entire FAR, and if they do that, it's going to take them a long time to write all that. I mean, if you look at the way a final FAR change comes out on the Federal Register, you see a fairly short change, but then you see pages of response to comments, which help you understand what they're trying to do. So it'll be interesting to see whether they actually do that here. If they do it, it's gonna drive the process out quite long, I think. But we'll
Well,
see.
Ralph, I think it's aided by artificial intelligence and software programs that they probably have that they can use here. But what they are creating, and the lawyers in the audience will appreciate this, is what Ralph and I would call, and you would call, legislative history. So in 2035, when there's a battle over what the language in FAR 12.108C5B means, you're going to be able to go back to the legislative history and see what the fight was and what was said. It's going to be very helpful to you.
That's right.
But
And
let me also say one other thing, Ralph. The word litigation was part of that question. I mean, to me, you're wasting your time. There's no standing. Well, it's premature. Uh, uh, Nothing is going to happen until the regs go final. And I don't, as long as they follow the regulatory process, the ability to challenge these things, unless you can do it on constitutional grounds, is almost non-existent.
yeah, and notice that that by issuing deviations, all these agencies are immediately adopting the new language without going through the
Regulatory process. Yeah.
statutory, the statutory,
Rulemaking. Yeah.
and most of the agencies are doing that. So, except for DOD. So it's an interesting process, and it's everything is sort of in turmoil. Now we had some other questions, I
Yeah, we
think.
did. But let me say one other thing, Ralph, because you put your finger on it. It's one thing for DOD to say, well, we're going to simplify our life and just not pay anything attention till it goes attention to this stuff till it goes final. That's great for DOD. But what if you're a contractor who has a list of clients that includes DOD and non-DOD agencies, and now you've got to watch both worlds?
Well,
That's
that's
really going to be tough.
yeah, and to the extent they rewrite the clauses,
Oh,
you're going to get clauses that you haven't seen before.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we're in for a year of turmoil. Let's call it.
Well, but Ralph, that does raise the question. Before we get, I know we have four other questions, but could you let's say that DHS adopts one of these clauses and they try to put it in a solicitation and you challenge it on the ground that it hasn't gone through rulemaking?
I don't know what'll happen. I mean, uh, a deviation is binding, and you can issue a deviation I think under the statutes.
Okay. All right. Okay. That probably resolves it. Okay. All right. So, Fritz, what are the other questions? One at a time.
Yep. In other words, given the contracting officer's broad discretion in source selection decisions, seems to leave the door open to challenges if this is to imply removal of price reasonableness requirements.
Oh, I don't think it's ever implied that price reasonableness requirements are going to be removed. That's statutorily required.
Yeah, that won't.
And if we said something that implies that somehow price won't be a factor in evaluation, then we misspoke, because price always has to be an evaluation factor. That's statutory.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not sure where that's coming from. I do think the first part of the question was very interesting in the sense that I think the way they're rewriting these things gives the COs a lot more discretion. I think it's broadening their discretion, in my view. We'll see what the guides look like, but taking the shalls out of there and changing them to shoulds and mays, even wills, really broadens their discretion. I think.
Yeah, although I've argued for years that there's plenty of discretion in the current FAR, but
There
nonetheless,
is.
yeah.
There is no question about it. Okay, Fritz.
Next up, the simplified acquisition threshold is currently $250,000. Is that
240.
changing
240.
or okay? Is that changing, or will it still sometimes be the threshold for the purchase of goods?
It'll be the same. That won't change. And we already saw one of the exceptions of that in the commercial item. commercial product and services. But remember that can be raised by inflation guidance.
Yeah.
And the FAR Council does that every few years.
And I'm sorry, it is 250. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah, 250. Okay, next question.
Can you discuss the process or order for finding existing vehicles to fulfill your requirements in the context of market research?
Hmm.
I didn't understand what we're supposed to discuss.
I think Fritz, read it one more time.
Okay. Can you discuss the process for finding existing vehicles to fulfill your requirement in the context of market research?
Okay, Ralph, I think this is a contracting officer asking, what do I need to do to say that we have conducted adequate market research? At least with respect to finding out if there are any interagency vehicles out there that I could buy from automatically or immediately. What do you do? What do you do? Do you go online? What do you do?
Well, if you go to part 5, publicizing contract actions, some of the guidance tells you that SAM doesn't work all that well to find vendors. So what they tell you is you got to figure out different techniques to get the industry folks to participate in your procurement, and that would be going to trade shows or finding their own website where they where they normally do their business. But I think the interesting thing is admitting that a lot of people don't read SAM, and
Yeah.
that technique, uh, the guidance basically says probably is not sufficient in most cases. But this is a hard area. I mean, you got to find out who the contractors are that you like to do, and then you got to find out uh, what do they read. They certainly don't read the Federal Register, and if they don't read SAM, then you got to get to them somehow, and that means exploring how that industry actually operates.
But I think the real question here, maybe I misunderstood it, Ralph, is if I'm sitting there at the Department of, let me name an agency that hasn't been deleted yet. If I'm sitting there at Commerce and I need to buy some kind of software programs, is there already a vehicle out there at GSA or the Air Force or DOD that I can jump on because it's an interagency vehicle that I can buy from?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're all in GWACs. There's a federal supply schedule. So there are lots of people who are identified on those vehicles as having contracts already. So, the guidance is basically that you should use those vehicles and not do your own single new procurement.
Right, but
So,
how do you find out where the vehicles are? What is there a place you can go to find out what vehicles are out there that you can check to see if they contain what you're looking for?
yeah, there's a GSA one website
Okay.
that lists those vehicles.
Well, I think that was the question. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I think that was it. What else do you have, Fritz?
All right, with the downsizing and reorganization of the Defense Contract Audit Agency, I would have expected to see changes to FAR Part 42. Based on the overhauls completed so far, what type of changes would you focus on for FAR Part 42?
We haven't seen it yet. Um, we have seen Part 31, which is the cost principles,
It is.
and they issued that basically without any change. So, from DCAA's point of view, their manual is still, I think, fundamentally correct. They're not going to have to revise their manual very much. The big issue that's floating around is the cost accounting standards, and it'll be interesting to see whether they actually try to revise them or not. But we haven't seen that yet, so we don't really know. Now, uh, Tim, go down to part 38. I want to just take a quick look at that before we run out of time.
Okay, Fritz, do I right hand click on that?
If you go ahead and launch it into a new tab.
Well,
Right here. All right, it's the one on the second on the left. It's second on the left, Tim. Go all the way over to the left. It's second on the left.
I'm there. I'm there. Reserve.
Okay. This is really interesting because notice it's now part 38 reserved. The entire part is gone. And what they did with it is to move it over to the GSA manual. And they said, this part 38 tells you how to buy off the federal supply schedule. Okay. So by moving it over to the GSA manual, it raises two questions in my mind. The other executive order says that we're going to turn over the procurement of common goods and services to GSA.
Right.
Okay. Now that's almost $500 million worth of stuff. No, billion, 500 billion. This, by moving all the guidance on how to buy from the federal supply schedule, is that saying that all the task orders issued on the federal supply schedule are going to be issued by GSA contracting officers? I mean, that is a huge change. And my assumption always has been, up till I saw this, my assumption has been that when they say we're going to turn over common goods and services to the GSA, what they were saying is that the GSA is going to create the vehicles, federal supply schedule or GWACs, but then the agencies would issue task orders against those vehicles. So I've got this huge question mark in my head. Who's going to issue task orders when this whole process is completed? Are they going to leave it to the agencies, or are they going to try and get GSA contracting officers to issue thousands of task orders to get put out? And I'm waiting.
Well, Ralph, there are so many online betting services available now. This would be a good one, and I would be betting that the different agencies will be able to place their orders against the vehicle that's been established by GSA. That would be my bet.
Well, that's what I thought until I saw all this moved over. Now, if you're right, and I suspect maybe you are, then that means that to get guidance on how you buy off the federal supply schedule, if you're in some other agency, you've got to go to the GSA manual and find your guidance over there, rather than having it in the documents you've been used to using, which is the FAR. And that's kind of an interesting proposition, that to find out how to do my job, I've got to go to somebody else's, some of my other agencies' guidance, rather than going to the FAR. So when I saw this, I was fascinated because it raises a big issue. But anyway, that's what they did. Part 38 is gone.
Well, it could mean, Ralph, that it doesn't say deleted, it says reserved. And it could mean that this battle is being fought behind closed doors. And after Labor Day, when everyone's back and the government's back to full throttle, that maybe they'll be hammering this out. And when you think about this, is a great example of how we've always said that yeah, you have the OFPP, and in principle they are in charge of all federal procurement policy, but the elephant in the room is the Department of Defense. And it could be that this is reserved until they have this battle fought out behind closed doors.
Well, it could be. I mean, if they get enough comments saying, "Hey, you shouldn't have done that," you ought to leave this in the forest because that's a document we read. Then maybe they'll respond to that.
Yeah.
But the first draft is throw it all out, right?
Yeah. That's really fascinating. Well, Fritz, I think we've hit our time limit, and obviously this is a topic of great interest to us. It is, as Ralph said, it's been moving fast. Now that we're approaching Labor Day, it's probably going to move a little bit faster. And the big boys, in terms of the FAR parts, still haven't come out.
Right.
So it's the fall. This autumn, these upcoming months are going to be a busy time, and we will stay on top of it for you. So thank you for joining us today. And Ralph, we really appreciate it.
Right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll be back in another month or so when we see part 16 or
15.
Or the competition, negotiated competition part. We, as you said, we're waiting for the really important ones.
Yep, the ones that most of us talk about all the time.
Yeah, right.
So it's over to you, Fritz. Thank you very much, folks, for coming to PCI.
Right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I do have a rating poll up. Tell us how we did today. We hope we did well, but if we didn't, we would like to know. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Have a great Labor Day.